Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck Tiers. The Yu-Gi-Oh! Community generally accept that decks can be split into several tiers. A tier is a measure of how good a deck is and can vary over time. The metagame, the most played deck types at the moment, generally consists entirely of Tier 1 decks. Every other deck type is irrelevant under the system, which is often extremely short-sighted. In order to clarify the questions that may arise when I refer to a tier, I will codify the system as clearly as I can. Tier 0. Occasionally, a deck has the right combination of tools at its disposal to completely outcompete all other decks. Formats that experience a Tier 0 are those in which an entirely new set of cards were released without the key set cards being limited or banned ahead of time. Generally seen as toxic to the health of the game, any deck that falls within this tier will have cards placed in the limit or ban list in order to promote competition. Tier 1. This deck is composed entirely of current decks played competitively. The decks may actually be worse than decks in the tier below, but perform well in tournament settings due to the decks they can reasonably expect to compete against. As of August 2017, one can reasonably state that Tier 1 decks are composed of True Draco and Zodiacs. Keep in mind that many decks incorporate other engines in order to shore up weaknesses, so you may see many hybrid variations of popular deck types in this tier. Tier 2. This tier is generally composed of decks that were formerly Tier 1 but became outdated due to the release of new cards, were outcompeted, or simply fell out of favor. Many decks in this tier are not Tier 1 due to their lack of play in the competitive scene, but could potentially be just as good as Tier 1 decks if they simply had new support, new combos, or faced better matchups in tournaments. For example, Windups, Six Samurais, Burning Abyss, Shaddolls, and Teller Knights. Tier 3. Decks in this tier are strictly for casual play. They may be fun to play with an interesting or noteworthy concept, and occasionally win upset victories over better decks, but lack consistency, speed, or some other ineffable component that often holds them back. Often, the introduction of a better engine or new support could easily bump this deck up a tier, but is unlikely to ever be tournament worthy. Examples, U-Bolts, Infernoids, etc. Tier 4. These decks are unlikely to ever even be remotely playable and exist as fanciful concepts that haven't been fully fleshed out. Structure and starter decks are often Tier 4 and can easily rise up 1 or even 2 tiers simply by buying 2 additional copies and combining them. Duelist Vernacular, Lingo, Slang. Like any established activity involving more than one person, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has formed its own vernacular. That is to say, it has formed its own set of short code words that may be confusing to an outside observer or newcomer. As a service to our viewers, I have decided to compile a short list of the ones that I'm aware of, and will update it as I find other established vernacular. Nut decking. Someone who has found a cards list and copied it directly, without consideration for the choices. Sometimes it is a necessary action to start playing a deck, but it has negative connotations as an action low-skill players commonly take part in. Top decking. A card that was just drawn off the top of the deck, usually referred to derisively, could refer to a low skill or lucky play caused by random chance drawing. Beat Stick. A monster whose primary positive quality is its large attack. Generally lacking in other redeeming features, it often has a large attack for its level or ease of summoning. BKSS. Because Konami said so. The ultimate determination of what a card does is its original intent. Konami rulings can override common sense, the words on the card, and paltry concepts like logic. Bounce. To remove a card from the field by returning it to the hand, usually through a card like compulsory evacuation device. Brick. Brick handing, or a brick hand. When you draw a dead hand, a hand you cannot do anything with. Often happens in decks with poor balance, it is possible to draw unlikely hand combinations which are not very usable. Deck out. One of the alternate win conditions available to the player is to win when your opponent must draw from their deck, but is unable to do so due to lack of cards. A loss in such a manner is referred to as decking out. Deck thinning. An advanced deck building concept that maximizes the chances of drawing the cards you need. Deck thinning is the method by which you remove searchable cards from your deck in order to increase the ratio of remaining good cards in the deck. As your deck is thinned of cards you do not want in there, your top deck cards become better. Engine. A set of cards whose purpose is to provide positive benefits to the player. These benefits can take many forms and varies from engine to engine. Floater. A monster or card which replaces itself in some way, often by special summoning itself or a similar card to replace it. Floodgate. A card or combination of effects that limit your opponent's ability to play the game. Game State. The current number of cards in the hand, field, graveyard, extra decks, and banished from the field. Mastering awareness of game state is vital to improving as a player. Hand Trap. A card, usually a monster that can be activated in the hand, in order to accrue positive benefits, like Max C, or to hinder your opponent's abilities to make plays, like Effect Veiler. Milling. the sending of random cards in the top of the deck to the graveyard. Several cards are capable of achieving this, most notably Dante, the Lightsworn Monsters, and Card Trooper. Overextending. The reckless uses your resource in order to gain a transient advantage that doesn't win the game. Efforts to end the duel often result in overextension and could leave the player without any cards for the next turn. Public knowledge. The things in the game that both players can know and ask about at any point in the game. Such information includes, but is not limited to, effect text, number of cards in the hand, the cards in either player's graveyard, or the number of cards in both the side and extra deck. In addition, the current life points, number of counters on the field, and any written note that either player takes. Rule sharking. Defined by Konami as using rules and policy in an attempt to gain an advantage, rather than to ensure fair and consistent gameplay. According to official tournament guidelines, it's an unsporting misconduct. The meta or metagame. The most successful decks of the moment, they are a constantly shifting array of cards whose main value generally comes from their tournament play. Scooping. Forfeiting the game, usually for time reasons or in order to deny knowledge to an opponent who drew an unlikely first hand and for which your victory is not likely to occur under current conditions. Searcher. A card that looks for another card, usually for the purposes of deck thinning. Splashable. A card or cards that can be placed in unrelated decks, usually to positive gain. Stacking. An unacceptable method of cheating, prevented by shuffling your opponent's deck every time they go to shuffle. Stall. A method of denying your opponent the ability to play the game through taking up time, denying their ability to inflict damage, or generally prolonging the game through cards whose main purpose is to slow down the game. Suicide, or ramming. Using your monster to attack in a way that you know will lose in order to gain some non-obvious advantage. Swarming. Playing a large number of monsters during the same turn. Keep a positive attitude, grow as a person, and most of all, have fun.
Become a patron and support us today. If you like what you saw, like and subscribe below. Follow us on social media. Thank you. Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck Spotlight. Spotlight. Oh. Wait, MySpace still exists?
Copyright Yu-Gi-Oh! Senpais. All rights reserved. Contact us for sponsorship and advertisement opportunities.